Welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Kmet. My co-host is Scott Strasser. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Jason. How's it going?
Good. We're doing this a little differently than usual. We're recording in the press box at McMahon Stadium immediately after the final Calgary Wild match of the season.
Yeah, if you can hear any music in the background, that's not our personal playlist. That's just the music going at McMahon Stadium. The Wild just wrapped up their 2025 season with a very entertaining 2-1 win over Vancouver Rise. I think we're going to talk a lot about this game, but Jason, for first-time listeners, let's switch this up. I'll ask you, what is the YYC Soccer Podcast all about?
We focus on soccer in Calgary at the amateur, collegiate, and professional levels. We talk about the teams and the players from the city soccer community, from the grassroots all the way up to the pros.
Yeah.
How did I do?
Pretty good. And we're definitely going to focus a lot on this game that just ended here at McMahon, but we will also talk about Cavalry FC. They have a very important game this weekend, also against a Vancouver opponent. We'll talk about local post-secondary teams, preview some of their games coming up this weekend, including another rendition of the Crowchild Classic. And we have an interview. It's a quick one, but we're going to interview Lydia Bedford.
Yeah, not very often where we record this part before we record the interview, but we're going to record this, and immediately after we're done, we're going to go chat with her after the press conference for a few minutes. So we'll get her thoughts on the season.
So let's kick things off with our discussion of tonight's game.
Hi, this is Carly Johnson, and this is the YYC Soccer Podcast.
Yeah, we just finished watching this match, and we're currently sitting here watching the players and the staff salute the fans. Pretty positive end to the inaugural Calgary Wild season, I'd say.
Yeah, as mentioned, a 2-1 win over the Vancouver Rise, who are a team that the last time they played Calgary won 6-0. So coming into this, the Wild had nothing to play for as they've already been eliminated from playoff contention. But the Rise had, second place to play for. They needed 3 points to secure that. So we were expecting a really tough game from the visitors. But they, the Wild defended resolutely. They held their lines. They cleared the ball when they needed to. Steph Bukovic made a lot of really important saves, including a right at the death in stoppage time. And they managed to produce offensively as well.
Yeah, I thought they were really creative on offense, and we got to see, I'd say, one of the nicest goals they scored all season was the second goal. So a really solid performance from the team, and yeah, a good way to go into the offseason with on a bit of a positive note.
Yeah, definitely. As we've talked about a lot, the Wild really struggled this inaugural season. They finished with a 9-14-2 final record. So they are in fifth place with just 29 points from their 28 games. They scored 26 goals in 25 games, so just over a goal a game on average. And they conceded 42. So definitely a team that was a ways away from a playoff position this year, but 6 points from their last 2 games of the season. A great way to give the fans something to cheer about, even though there's no postseason to watch this year.
Definitely. Let's recap what happened in this match, I guess, from a goal standpoint. Calgary was playing really well, but in the first half hour, but yeah, right before that half-hour mark, they were able to draw a penalty.
Yeah, which is something they've finally been able to do in the last couple of games, because for most of the season, they just have not been drawing penalties. And this was a definite foul in the box on Holly Johnson. And as we've seen before, Captain Maggie Doherty-Howard stepped up and scored what I believe is her 6th goal of the season and her 2nd penalty in the last 2 games.
Yeah, well-taken penalty. And the teams went into halftime with the Wild. They had 1-0, but it didn't take very long for Calgary to double the lead. It was really fast, wasn't it, Scott?
It was a little too fast, if you ask me. I was still coming out of the players' tunnel and heard the cheers and realized that a goal had just been scored. So I missed the goal. I had to rely on the replay, but yeah, it was a nice cross to the back post from Jorian Baucom, and Holly Johnson was able to get her foot on it to double the Wild's lead 2-0. And, from that point forward, all they really had to do was shut up shop and hold on for the 3 points. But it was a pretty entertaining second half with a lot of end-to-end stuff.
Yeah, I texted you during the match and I said, this is not a cagey match. It was it was just full of entertaining, and there was back and forth and lots of opportunities, and it was really entertaining when you consider it was the last game of the season for a team that's out of the playoffs. Full value from that point of view.
Yeah, fans got their money's worth. I haven't even seen stats yet. I'm very curious to see what the XG or what the shots on goal were, what the possession was between the two teams, because it was just such a back and forth second half, and I think there were a couple of posts, and the Vancouver, as mentioned, they were playing for second place, which would give them a home berth in their opening playoff game. So they had a lot of reason to go for the win, but the Wild held their lines, and Bukovic, as mentioned, really big performance from her. The Rise did make it 2-1 with penalty of their own that Jessica De Filippo scored, but the Wild were able to do enough in the last 20 minutes to secure the 3 points.
So I guess now it's going to be time for the off season, and we'll see how the rest of the NSL playoffs go. But certainly from the standpoint of Calgary Wild, they're going to, I'm sure the plans for 2026 are already underway. So we've talked about some of our thoughts, big picture, about the team previously. And I think maybe at some point here before the winter break, we'll maybe get into a bit more. But if we just talk in a very general sense, though, Scott, I think there were a lot of positives to be taken out of this season. Maybe not in the standings, but I saw a lot of good things.
I think so too. I do think there's a lot of room for improvement with this club and with the roster, but we can talk about that a lot more later. There were definitely some high points, some games where the Wild managed to get positive results when the odds were perhaps stacked against them, right? We saw them beat Ottawa on the road, which was a really impressive performance. Their 2 home games that they beat Vancouver Rise, which is a team that every time I see them play, I think they look dangerous, with players like Holly Ward and Latifa Abdu in the second half of the season, and Jessica De Filippo and Quinn. So really good showings against Vancouver at home this year. And there were some other games as well, right? I think back to the 1-0 late win with Janaea Robertson scoring against Montreal for the first home win of the season. That's the kind of moment, a late goal like that cements a fan base. But yeah, overall, I mean, as mentioned, the scoreboard wasn't too kind to the Wild in a lot of games, so that there is a lot of a growth for the club, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting offseason to see who sticks around and who moves on. When you're a 5th place team and you're out of the playoffs, there'll definitely be some changes, but I guess they've got one night to sort of bask in some positive vibes before it's time to pack up their locker and go on their ways.
For sure. So as mentioned, we haven't interviewed Lydia yet, but this is the part where we're going to slot in that interview. So here's what Lydia Bedford had to say about this season and what the next few weeks and months will be like for those involved with the Calgary Wild. We'd like to welcome Lydia Bedford back to the podcast. Lydia, you guys just wrapped up the 2025 season with an impressive 2-1 win over Vancouver. How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, just really proud of the group's resilience. There's been moments in the season where it's been tough, and obviously our depth has been challenged by injuries, but I think to finish the season with 3 out of 4 wins and, have players back on the pitch that have been trying their hardest to push to be back for the team is really special. And to win against Vancouver full circle from the first game of the season and to do it in front of our fans at home tonight is a lovely way to finish the season.
You came here at the beginning of the year. It's a new country, new league, new club. Now that it's the season, regular season's over, what are your thoughts, your impressions of how it went overall?
Yeah, I think as a coach, when I get a bit of time to separate from obviously the emotions of going game to game, I think a big job for our staff team over the next kind of 3 weeks is to do a bit of a deep dive into the season. But I think on the whole, I said at the start of the season that I thought this league would be tight and that goal difference would probably be a big factor and obviously take us out of it. I think when you look at Ottawa, Montreal and Vancouver, goal difference is probably going to be the factor that decides where they are in the playoffs. So I think that just shows how competitive the league has been. And I think when I reflect back on, our season, I would say that without looking at the table, we're probably 1 or 2 wins short of everybody who's above us. But I think the biggest difference has been picking up draws. Other teams have got way more ties than we do. So that's something that I want to go away and reflect on. And, are they moments where we've probably just got to see out a game and take what's in front of us rather than maybe push for more? But on the whole, I'm really proud of what the players have achieved. And I think being here and having the opportunity to, start a team from scratch, do it in a city that has completely backed this team from start to finish, and having worked in England where, I spent 90 minutes each way every day driving to do my job, to going in a car 15 minutes to training and being able to have this beautiful platform, to go and explore the mountains and everything else. It's been a really nice opportunity to actually, as a coach, be in the thick of football, but actually be able to have a really nice balance away from it too.
Can you give your thoughts about how you feel the team progressed from first day of preseason or first game even to this point?
Yeah, I think one I probably want to reflect on a bit more. I think the biggest thing for us this year that I would say didn't necessarily help us is that we didn't have every player in the door at the start of preseason. So we did a 10-week preseason. Like Sarita Thurton arrived a week and a half or so before the start of preseason. Sarah Griffiths came in a week before. Like we didn't actually carry a group through preseason. So I think that shows maybe in, our depth more than anything, because I think first 5 games we managed to kind of get through. And then when you pick up injuries and a lot of your players haven't had a chance, like Tilly James, Talia White didn't get that many minutes in pre-season because of injuries. Everyone in this league has challenged our depth at centre-back, but those players just didn't get the opportunities that they probably should have done if they'd have gone through pre-season without injuries. So I think depth has challenged us at times. But in terms of the style of play, like I think if you watch from the beginning to the end, people can see the style that we've been trying to work on. It's just sometimes it works for us and sometimes we get punished, and we can be very expansive in the way that we play. So if we don't get that right, I think most of the time we're our worst enemy. Like cheap turnovers, not technically handling the ball as well as I'd want the team to at times, has been what's probably created a platform for other teams to succeed. Even the first game against Vancouver, right? We turned the ball over from a cross and they counter and get a penalty at the other end. So I think when we're in shape and we're organised, teams don't really pull us apart, other than those couple of games where we did get a bit chomped. But like, if we can keep the ball better and continue to develop that in our players, then I think our style continues to get stronger. But I think the other thing is we picked a style of football and our players dripped in through pre-season and we've given it our best go with the group. I think I'm in a much stronger position going into next year to look at, I know who I've got, I know who we're bringing in. Actually, like maybe there's some wriggle room there as we really start to work out how we best deploy our personnel.
Can you share anything you found particularly surprising this season, either about football in Canada or the NSL or about the team? Mm-hmm. Anything that kind of comes to mind?
I think pleasantly surprised with the level of play across all the teams. It's a real unknown. Even going into that first game against Vancouver, I think we were like on Y-Scout trying to look at individuals to try and work out their experiences. And I think this league has attracted a really good level of player. So that was a good surprise, if that makes sense. It would have been a really boring season if it had been not tight in games. I think then I knew the impact that the travel could have, but I've never worked in a league where travel has such a big impact. Time zones, 4-hour flights, Halifax, you're leaving an extra day before to go. And then I come from a country where, we travel in coaches, but the hotel setups are very easy for teams. That's been a real challenge this year. Like I remember there being like Halifax first game away that we ended up winning. Our team manager's trying to sort out pre-match for players and there's literally not a restaurant on the site that will deliver what we want. She's having to order in pancakes and spaghetti and chicken. And we walk into pre-match and there's 10 polystyrene parcels. Some have got a chicken breast in, some have got some random pasta in, and there's a load of pancakes. And it's like, that's not high performance team sport in my experience. And we've had to work really hard to build relationships with some of the hotels to actually get what we want out of those trips. So I think we've managed a lot of things like that no one sees, but they're the things that the staff are just chipping away at. Like, and now we've found some good hotels, we can go back to them next year, but there's other areas where we're still trying to work out the kind of best approach. I think the travel and the impact, even like when you come back, like if we fly the day after a game, even though that's technically a day off for the players, it's like they're cooked on the Monday still. So you've had to manage a lot more fatigue than I've ever managed as well in terms of that travel and time zone change.
All right. Last question I think we'll ask you is simply a message that you have for fans. As mentioned during the post-game presser, a pretty consistent number of fans showed up to every home game at McMahon, usually north of 3,000, 3,500. So what's your message to the people who've been backing this team since game one some months back?
Yeah, I think it's a big thank you from every player and every staff member. It makes such a difference when we get a good bit of play or the ref makes a bad decision, and you can hear that crowd really pushing the team. And for us, it's something that we're really proud to be able to do, to step out and play in front of those numbers of people. And we love it when you look up and you see all of the Wild gear. Like, our merch sells so well, and Andy does a great job with that. And just to see young kids so passionate, like the amount of people I get to connect with, where young boys and girls, they've got role models now that they never had before. So we're just very thankful. We want to see them come out again next year in bigger numbers. And as I said on the end of the pitch, tell your friends, because I still get messages from people who are like, I've come to my first game, and I'm like, brilliant, that's game 25. So let's get a season ticket and let's commit to next season, because these women deserve that platform, for their careers and for this sport to grow in Canada. So the more people we can attract in, the better.
But thank you for I think you've done 3 interviews with us this year, so we really appreciate it.
No problem.
Yeah, we do, definitely. Thanks for your time, and yes.
Thanks for following it so closely.
Hey guys, it's Callum Montgomery, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
All right, Scott, let's talk about Cavalry FC. They are also playing their final match of the regular season this week, the weekend more accurately, Saturday afternoon in Langley, against the CONCACAF-bound / cellar-dwelling Vancouver FC.
The best last place team in the history of the CPL, as I believe their former coach, Ashton Godby, called them not too long ago. And maybe he had a point. I don't know. It's a weird compliment to give your team, but Vancouver FC, they're hosting Cavalry out in Langley on Saturday afternoon. Kickoff is at 2 p.m. A very important game for Cavalry, who haven't yet secured third place, which, as we know, is very key when it comes to your playoff run shortly after the regular season ends.
Yeah, you definitely want to get that third place position if you can. And I worked out all the scenarios here, and I don't know if we want to go into every possible one, but the easiest one is Cavalry win, third place is theirs. Nothing else matters really, no matter what the Wanderers or York United do. That's sort of the most straightforward scenario. And then it starts to get wonky.
Yeah. There's 3 different things that can happen if Cavalry draw, as you pointed out here. If Cavalry draw and Halifax wins their match, then Halifax would get third, Cavalry would finish fourth. And that's because the first tiebreaker is total wins, and Halifax would beat Cavalry on that front. And if Halifax loses or draw and Cavalry draw, Cavalry would get third.
Yeah, that's right. Sort of the nightmare scenario for Cavalry is a loss where they drop all 3 points. Because if it so happened, and this could happen because all of these teams are playing different opponents, if the Wanderers win and York wins combined with the Cavalry loss, Cavalry would get 5th place. And that's on the basis that the Wanderers would have more points, but York would be tied with them on points, but they win the tiebreaker in the head-to-head. It would be York would have 4th place.
Yeah. And as we've talked about ad nauseum, the benefit of finishing third is that you wouldn't have to play in that midweek playoff game next week between 4th and 5th. So I guess the moral of the weekend, if you're Cavalry, is don't stop believing and go for the 3 points.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to think that this is a match that, in theory, Cavalry should have in hand, but they just have not played well against this team for whatever reason. And even earlier in the year, when Vancouver wasn't playing that well against anyone else, they were playing well against Cavalry. But now, they have gotten better. Like in the last month or so, like there has been a bit of an uptick in their performance.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Vancouver FC has never really been a strong opponent against Cavalry in terms of getting wins, but they have drawn Cavalry a lot, and that's definitely been the case this year, with them drawing Cavalry both at home and at Spruce Meadows earlier in the season, and of course knocking Cavalry out of the Canadian Championship on penalties. So the last time these two teams played in Langley, I believe it was a 1-1 draw. And it's just been a place that Cavalry hasn't picked up a lot of points at this in the last maybe 2 years or so. But Vancouver, it's, a team that has only won 4 of their 27 games this year. You just can't fancy them in this one, especially without really anything to play for.
Michael Beltissimo will be back from suspension, and the 3 Cavalry players that were on international duty, hard to know exactly what their status will be. I did see on the Cavs Instagram feed today that Mikhail Gerasimenkov is already training with the team again. So he's definitely around. So hard to know what the availability of those players will be, but you would think that they will probably likely at least be on the bench.
Hi, this is Bella Tirico, and you are listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
All right, let's, as we so often do, finish this week's episode by previewing the local university and college soccer action taking place this weekend. Most notably, there's another rendition of the Crowchild Classic.
Yeah, there's a men's version on Saturday and the women's version on Sunday. And this will wrap up all these team seasons last weekend of Canada West season as well, the regular season. Saturday afternoon, we're going to see the men face off at MRU at 3 p.m.
And then on Sunday afternoon, we'll see the women take over, and MRU will host the UFC Dinos with kickoff at 1 p.m. They just played each other. We saw the Dinos beat MRU 1-0 just last weekend over the Thanksgiving weekend. But on the men's side, we were quite surprised with the first edition of the Crowchild Classic when MRU pulled out a pretty emphatic 4-0 win at McMahon Stadium.
The men's version of the Crowchild Classic is going to be significant, more significant than maybe I originally appreciated, because if the Dinos win this match and they beat the Cougars, they will take over first place. And the reason for that is they'll be level on points. But the first tiebreaker, I had to check on this. The first tiebreaker is who won the most recent match. So that would be the Dinos. So they would get first place.
Yeah, interesting that's the tiebreaker they go with. But regardless, it looks like the season will continue for both of Calgary's teams on the men's side as well as the women's side, with the Dinos and the Cougars playing so well this 2025 season.
All right, SAIT is also finishing their season this weekend. The men's and women's teams will be having double headers. The first one is on Saturday afternoon at SAIT. They're going to play Lethbridge. And then on Sunday, they travel to Medicine Hat to play the Rattlers. And this is a pretty significant game for the men in particular, because if they could pull out the win against the Rattlers, they would have a chance potentially to take over first place, because they would be tied on points.
Yeah, Medicine Hat, the only unbeaten team in the ACAC South on the men's side, with a perfect 8-0 record. They'd beaten SAIT earlier this year in Calgary. SAIT, that's their only blemish on their record. They have a 7-1 record. So this game really is going to determine how the table looks at the end of the season. For the women, it's, I think, a little more straightforward.
It's all been decided. SAIT's first place. Doesn't matter what happens. They've got it all locked up. This game has no standing significance for them, at least. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're still sporting a perfect record. Very little competition for them in the ACAC South this year. They're currently ranked second nationally, which is the same as last week. On the men's side, they did actually move up 2 spots from 8th to 6th nationally. But as you can probably tell, 2 very, very strong ACAC programs in SAIT this year.
Yeah, we'll have lots of post-secondary playoff action to talk about next week for sure.
Thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can have this episode downloaded to your device as soon as it becomes available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcasting platforms. Check out our website at yycsoccer.com, where you can look through our episode archive and find other ways to listen, including our YouTube channel. We also have links to buy my book, Here Come the Cavalry, which is all about the history of professional soccer in Calgary. You can leave a question or comment for us in the Contact Us section of our website. You can also interact with us on social media through X, Instagram, or Blue Sky, where our username is @YYCSoccer403. Thanks for listening.